evening, everyone. I'm Lydia Shelley, also known as Lydia Glider Shelley, Word Power, Leadhead Lydia, or Sister Sunshine. Take your pick. Larry Mason, the person responsible for what you will hear from me tonight, was supposed to be the voice you heard, but due to technical difficulties, you'll have to wait for him to speak next week or thereafter. To begin with, we'd like to thank Michael Shanklin and anyone else who helps him with the Voluntary Virtues Network for providing an audience while allowing us to do one of the things we love best, lecturing. Larry was a professor for 8 years and loved his time in the classroom. I just enjoy speaking. Anyway, lecturing's a lot more fun when the listeners can ask questions or correct your errors, but we'll have to make do with plain lecture for now. We do eventually expect to evolve this into a live, interactive show, so please stay tuned and keep coming back each week. This is the first of a series of talks about various subjects which involve money in one way or another. But you probably figured that there would be money involved when you read the title, Invisible Hand. Invisible Hand is also the name of a novel Larry wrote, which we sincerely hope you have either already read or that you'll be inspired to read as a result of listening to us. It won't cost you any money to do so, since it's freely available on the net at nopomstuff.info. That's nopomstuff.info. It's available in both text and MP3 forms, or if you're willing to spend $1 on Amazon, you can download the entire novel to your Kindle. But enough with the commercial nonsense. For some reason, money seems to be an important part of our lives and has a lot to do with the circumstances that we deal with daily. That's something we hope to explain. The Voluntary Virtues Network is frequented by small L libertarians, some of whom may be members of the capital L Libertarian Party of the United States, but most of which are anarchist. One thing is clear, libertarians think money is quite important, so I hope they will find what we have to say to be of interest. Larry's ideas certainly agree with what we understand the libertarian position to be regarding money. For some years now, libertarians have pointed out several really serious problems with our society here in the USA. Of course, socialists, communists, and other statists also point to a somewhat different set of really serious problems here in the USA. Mainstream politicians of whatever stripe and party point to problems as well, some of which are insignificant and some of which are serious. But since they are merely trying to get elected and not trying to improve the conditions under which we live or our prospects for the future, we won't pay much attention to them. On the other hand, the average citizen is suffering from serious problems every day. Those are, or should be, of great concern to all of us. Why should the problems of the average citizen concern us? Because we are all mutually interdependent. That is, everyone depends on other people every day. If you drive a car, you depend on other drivers not to do something stupid and run into you. If you eat food, there's a very good chance that you didn't grow that food for yourself. If you wear clothing, there's a huge probability that you did not create the fibers, weave the cloth, and sew those clothes for yourself. If you live in a house or apartment, you probably did not fashion all the building materials for yourself and assemble them for yourself using tools you created from scratch for yourself. And none of us invented the language we speak. So we all depend on other people. Things which harm other people also harm us, although that harm may be indirect. It may be in the form of higher taxes or higher insurance rates. It may be that someone else's illness gives us a greater chance to become ill or to spend more time in the emergency room waiting to be treated. But that harm to other people actually does affect us, each and every one of us. Just because someone else's problem doesn't seem to be directly affecting you, that doesn't mean your life won't improve if that problem is solved. If you've paid careful attention to what these various political groups have been saying about our national problems, economic problems, or just our problems as people, you'll find money to be heavily involved in some way in all of these problems. The biblical verse which states that the love of money is the root of all evil has a great deal of truth to it. It's not the only root of evil, but it's certainly a major contributor to evil in our world. Economics is the academic discipline or science which studies money as we know it, not so much from the anthropological point of view, but from the modern industrialized world point of view. Economists don't study how the Romans of ancient times made the transition from using salt as the commodity money of choice to the use of coins of silver, gold, and other metals. That's for anthropologists and historians rather than economists. But economics has been around for hundreds of years, as many of you know. And I'm sure some of you have even read your Adam Smith. Our scholars, politicians, and philosophers have been thinking about these issues and trying to solve problems involving money for thousands of years. Economics has had the benefit of all that thought and all the data gathered by anthropologists, historians, and ethnographers. Yet with all that thought and all that study and all the data collected by economists and others, we still have the same problems that the ancient Egyptians had over 5,000 years ago. Where are the solutions to all these problems involving money? Why do we still suffer from poverty, political oppression, unemployment, organized crime, war, inflation, debt, externalized costs, and so on? If you ask an economist, anthropologist, psychologist, sociologist, or even your neighbor, you won't get a satisfactory answer. They might say something like, "That's just human nature. People are sinful. There isn't enough to go around. Governments cause all our problems." Or, "It's because your mother didn't treat you right." But no answers of that kind really explain why we haven't eliminated those problems even after using money for over 5,000 years. If economists understand the cause, why do we still have the problems? If economics is really a science, where's the corresponding technology which can apply the findings and theories of economic science to eliminate these problems? If you're so smart, why aren't you rich, as the old saying goes? Economic theories may come and go, coming into popularity and fashion, and passing back out of fashion, but none of them ever seems to get refuted, to hear their advocates talk. None ever really get disproven. None of their theories are ever tested and completely fail the test. Have you ever heard of an economist who said, "Given what we have learned, I now know that my theory was completely wrong"? Sure, we have economic disaster after disaster, but for some reason, according to each of the schools of economic thought, those disasters merely prove to their advocates that each of those schools of thought was right. Look at the explanations for a worldwide Great Depression of the 1930s. Every school of economic thought will tell you why it happened and will tell you that those tragic events supported their theories and refuted the other guy's theories. But I don't recall any theory that predicted the crash and its magnitude. Of course, I'm not an economist, nor have I read everything ever written on the subject. So one or more economists may indeed have made such a prediction and I just missed it. But the point is that we have been looking at money problems and economics for hundreds or thousands of years, depending on how you define economics, and still have the same kinds of money problems, with no sign that any of those problems are going away. We still have governments taking money by force from citizens. We still have children going to bed hungry. We still have at least one adult in 20 maybe in 10, without work, even though they want to work. We still have organized crime, political corruption, inflation alternating with deflation. We still have no truly free markets. Larry came to the conclusion that we have not correctly identified the nature of the problem. His conclusion is that we need to look at these issues in a new way because all the old ways have not worked at all. We're doing something wrong, and all the orthodox ways of looking at these problems have failed us. I promise you that the point of view I will present will be outside the box, unorthodox, off the wall, and not found elsewhere. We are not ashamed to be unorthodox in our thinking. I say this proudly. I proclaim it. Why? Because every orthodox approach has already failed many times. There is no solution in economics. There is no solution inside that box. Our only chance of finding a solution is to look outside the box, to be unorthodox. Fortunately, the idea Larry stumbled across, intellectually speaking, explains not only our problems, but explains why all the other proposed solutions have failed for thousands of years, and why they will continue to fail no matter how many times we try them. Naturally, outside-the-box ideas are very likely to be wrong as well. Just because you're different doesn't mean you're right. But as Sherlock Holmes said in The Sign of the Four mystery, how often have I said to you that when you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however unlikely, must be the truth? Well, we've spent thousands of years eliminating solutions which seemed possible, but which turned out to be impossible. So it's time to look for new explanations of these problems and the new solutions which they may make obvious. You should look upon Larry's ideas as something to investigate fully, if what we say has something of the truth in it. So examine each point I make thoroughly. Please don't automatically reject an idea just because you want us to be wrong. So if you're ready to stretch your mind and have your preconceived notions contradicted, if you're ready to at least consider something really different, something that never before crossed your mind, then listen up, because that's what we've got for you. On the other hand, if you've already decided that I'm a nutcase, keep listening so you can laugh at me. Who knows? I may prove mildly amusing. Let's begin on a dark street in the seedy part of town. You approach a dark alley, and as you pass it, someone steps out of the shadows, presses a gun into the small of your back, and you hear, "Your money or your life." That stern choice has been presented to millions of people over the centuries. Go back as far as you like in human history, to any part of the world that had a government, and you'll find money being taken from people against their will. Sometimes it was the government demanding tax money. Sometimes it was a robber holding a victim at knife or gunpoint. Sometimes it was soldiers looting and plundering. Sometimes it was pirates at sea. Sometimes it's some kind of fraud, whether small, like false advertising, or large, like the trillions in mortgage fraud by the major banks of the world in 2007 and 8. But in all times and all nations, you will find this pattern of money being taken against the will of the owner again and again. You already knew about these ways of taking money by force. But were you aware that these things happen in every nation without exception in all of history? It doesn't matter what form of government the nation uses. Even during the Dark Ages after Rome fell, when there was almost no government as we know it today, money was still being taken by force, stealth, and fraud. It doesn't matter what religion the people followed. The pharaohs of Egypt, for example, have been taxing for over 1,000 years before Moses was born. It doesn't matter what kind of a technology people use. It doesn't matter what the laws and morality of a nation say. In every nation, everyone has had to worry about someone else taking their money. And in every nation, taking money from its owner against the will of that owner is considered immoral, unless a government does it. I think we can all agree that what I've said here is true, that money can be taken from you against your will. Why is this violation of law and morals universal? While you're pondering that, poser, I'll mention that in every nation, people also lose money from time to time. Have you ever found a coin or a bill on the ground, in the street, or using one of those metal detectors on the beach? Well, somebody lost that money you found. That's another way the amount of money you possess can be reduced against your will. I'll bet I don't need to explain why that can happen in every nation. Did you ever see someone in a cartoon light a cigar using a large denomination bill? The idea is that such a person is so rich that the amount of money lost thereby is trivial to them. But paper currency can burn and coins can melt in a fire. Currency can be destroyed accidentally or on purpose. So hiding money under your mattress does not necessarily keep that money safe. This also has been true in every nation throughout history. Have you spotted the common characteristic yet? The thread that runs through these several examples? I'll bet you have. The answer is that in every case, the thing being taken or lost or destroyed was a physical object. Something you could touch and with modern currency even pick up. Physical objects have always been something which other people could take from you. When you were a baby, perhaps people took candy from you. When you were in school, perhaps a bully took your lunch money. When you study martial arts, you learn how to take a knife away from an attacker. It is a property of physical objects that they can be taken from you against your will. It is a property of physical objects that they can be lost or destroyed. That's true everywhere and at every time. I think you'll agree that because money is either a physical object or is treated as if it were a physical object, it can be taken from you against your will, even when the money is just numbers in a computer somewhere. Your bank takes money from you in fees every month, or at least lately they do. So, because people love money, if they didn't love money, it wouldn't be used as money. Everyone that loves what money can buy has a motive to get as much money as possible, however they can. One of the ways people can get money is by taking it from other people, even if it's against the will of the owner. No matter how you get money from someone else, it spends the same. Now, most people are honest, at least most of the time, so you don't steal or defraud the people you deal with. But the fact remains that there are people out there in the world who are not as honest as you are. People who do steal money, swindle people, or use force to take other people's money. Now, I don't know you, so I don't know how you feel about that situation. But personally, I don't like it one bit. I don't want to be robbed or swindled or otherwise deprived of the money I have against my will. But so long as the money we use is a physical object, or represents a physical object, we will have to live with losing money against our will. I think we are in agreement about that. Because money can be taken from you against your will, doesn't that give everyone else in the world a motive to take your money? Think about it. Has your teenager ever taken money out of your purse or off the dresser without your permission? Yes, even people you love have a motive to take your money. If you're lucky, none of them will ever take your money against your wishes. But if you aren't that lucky, it will happen, and may happen more than once. And that's just the people you love. What about all those strangers out there in the world? Some of those strangers are even willing to kill to get money. Don't they want your money too? Yes, I agree that most people will resist the temptation to take money against the owner's will. But the temptation is always there, and people have off days. You have to be careful, don't you? You have to look out for pickpockets and purse snatchers. You may have a gun to protect your home and family. You may hire a lawyer when you buy a house. You have to read the fine print. You have to be careful about trusting that email that popped up in your inbox. A fool and his money are soon parted. But there are some really smart people out there who are trying to get your money. Even people who are not foolish at all can still be fooled. You can fool some of the people all of the time, and all of the people some of the time. And that's enough to make you rich. To make things worse, if you have a bank account, the bank can take your money, and there's little or nothing you can do about it. They charge fees for all sorts of things. And they also have expensive lawyers writing those contracts you sign when you open those accounts. You don't have to be a fool to be soon parted from your money. And there's nothing at all fair about how powerful interests go about getting your money either. If you're rich, you'll probably have to hire people to help guard your money. But can you really trust them? After all, they want and need money too. And you've let them inside the defenses you've set up for your fortune. And what about those great unwashed masses of poor people out there? You know, some will do just about anything for money, including attacking you and your family. It's no wonder you prefer to live in a gated community. So, just because money is or represents physical objects, and we treat even money in computer accounts as if it were physical objects, just because of that, we have to suspect almost everyone else of trying to cheat us or of being a threat to our well-being, even to the point of suspecting people whom we love. That's a pretty sad state of affairs. You get taxed by the state, you get robbed, you get swindled, you get cheated by the businesses you patronize, you lose your coins, and well, it's just one thing after another. And all these problems exist because money is or represents a physical object. These problems exist because that's the nature of the money we use. I can't emphasize that too strongly. These problems exist because of the nature of the money we use. That's not the only consequence of our using a POM, a physical object money. Not by a long shot. Think about it. If it's a property of physical objects generally, it's a property of money too. For example, a rock or a piece of wood or a gun has no ethics or morality. It has no mind, no concept of right and wrong, so it can be used for any purpose, whether that purpose is good, bad, or indifferent. The same thing is true of physical object money. Those coins and bills in your pocket can be used for any purpose you can think of. That money in your checking account can be used for good or evil. That's true of every physical object ever used as money, and will be true of anything which we treat as a physical object, even if it's just a virtual currency in a computer memory. Most money transactions today don't involve currency, but we still treat that account money as if it were a set of physical objects being moved from one account to another. Some of the most horrible events in history came about because of how money was used. The guns that slaughter innocent children are bought. using money. The bombs that destroy people and livelihoods are paid for with money. The Nazi gas chambers were built by people for pay. Invading armies must be paid using money. Money doesn't do evil things by itself, but it is both a motivation and a means for many evil actions. That's pretty obvious to everyone. But wait, there's more! I'm sure you've heard of hyperinflation. Situations in which a government simply prints lots more currency with large numbers on them, causing prices to rise to astronomical heights. You also know about the Great Depression, when so many banks failed and prices dropped to very low levels, while unemployment soared because the money supply was so depleted due to those failed loans and bank failures. You see, the supply of one physical object is independent of the supply of other physical objects. Because money has always been a physical object or represented a physical object, we have had increases or decreases in the supply of money with no corresponding increase or decrease in the supply of goods and services for sale. In other words, we have had inflation and deflation caused by changes in the money supply. Again, these changes in prices and money supply have been happening for thousands of years and in all nations around the globe. If the money used is a physical object money, inflation and deflation will happen. Still, if you have $1 in your hand, you can at least control that, right? Or can you? It can be taken from you against your will. But let's say you have children and you don't want them spending their money to buy candy. If they have money in their hands, how do you prevent their buying candy? You can't do it, can you? Eventually, they will slip away from you and trade that money for candy. They can also buy illegal drugs. Your church may want its members to refrain from drinking alcohol. Some do, anyway. Can your church prevent your buying alcohol? Can the state government prevent people from buying illegal drugs or alcohol or sex or anything else by passing laws and hiring lots of police? No. Black markets exist in every nation that attempts to regulate and restrict trade in any way. Prostitution is called the oldest profession. So it would appear that vice for money has been going on in every nation since prehistory. The only logical conclusion is that a POM cannot be controlled. If you are using a physical object money in your nation, that money will not be controllable by any person or group or organization. It just can't be done. I think you will find yourself in agreement with that as well. We are out of time for this week, so I'm afraid we'll be stopping here. For more information, you can visit www.nopomstuff.info. That's NOPOMSTUFF.info. And please begin by reading the novel Invisible Hand, or you may download the MP3 files to the device of your choice and listen to Larry read the story, which was written to explain how an extraordinary new system might work. Make no mistake, this is like nothing else ever proposed, although many people tried to equate it with this one or that. It is not in any way similar to or related to the Venus Project, Zeitgeist, or other ideas bandied about. Truly unique, this is something you need to read completely through the material to fully grasp. Thank you. Good night.